worker, we use what is called active listening, and I'm not sure what your guys' professional interests are, so I'm just going to say a little bit about active listening, is that you really want to make sure you're paying attention to the person that's talking to you. Active listening actually says that if you have something going on in your head, you're supposed to push that away, forget about it or whatever, and go on and listen to make sure you're listening to the person. So I kind of want to change it and talk about creative listening. And what I mean by that is when you're having a conversation with a fellow author or a fellow person, you might be able to think, they might be able to give you an idea. You might be stuck in what you're writing. You might have an idea of what you want to write, but you don't know where to go with it. Okay? So Monique and I, the very first conference or event that we went to, she proceeded to tell me about a story that she had running around in her mind that had to do with intergenerational events, right? So in my mind I went, oh, I have a friend of mine who has a ring. It's so old now that nobody can wear it, but it has been handed down through the generations. And the only requirement of the person who gets the ring, they have to have the name Nicole. It can be the first name, it can be the middle name, it doesn't matter, just as long as they have the name Nicole.
That's cool. Keep the name going.
Yes, and I've known this fact for about 25 years. Have loved, in fact, anytime I get the chance, I talk about this idea. And as soon as she started talking about the story, it has to do with the house. But over here I kept going, man, that ring, that's really a story.
And it's almost the same story, but it's different. And my lady gets this house from a slave woman gets a house from her master. And his stipulation is that as long as Nanny Bouvier is alive, she can have this house. And so she names her daughter Nanny Bouvier, who in turn names her daughter Nanny Bouvier. And so I was telling them about that, and she started with her idea, with her story, and I think it's going to work.
So anyhow, I kept thinking, okay, so if I do something with this ring, what can I do with it? And then I thought, magic. I want the ring to be magical. I don't know why, but I just knew it wanted. I'm kind of into the fantasy thing, a certain degree.
I don't know.
Not as much as Casey is, but I love Diana Gabaldon's book, and it has to do with time travel. And I am like, any book that tells me it involves time travel, I have to read it. So when I kept thinking about, this book and what can I do with it and where can this story go and how do I love writing. In college I used to write for the college newspaper, but to me I thought that was easy versus, I didn't think you were a writer if you were writing for the newspaper.
I did. I wrote for a lot of newspapers. And then I had to edit them too.
Yes, well, and and I had somebody, I guess when you have to have confidence in what you do, and I didn't have confidence in my writing. In listening to her talk, it made me think more and more of what I can do with this story. So Monique has a way of throwing an idea here or there, and then off she goes, and then I have to sit there and go, oh, okay. So she comes to me and she says, you want to do something about listening, ideas and listening? And I'm going, I guess I can. What are you talking about? And so when she was telling me that she wanted me to talk about, when we were talking and you got your idea about your story from us talking, I went, oh, you're talking about active listening. Well, then I had to sit back and think about what actual active listening meant, and it truthfully means that you don't have anything else going on in your mind but listening to what the person said. So that's why I kind of changed it to creative thinking. So I went, okay, so then I was like going, okay, so what's the subject again? So I had to look up Barbara's post like 2 or 3 times. Oh, yeah. Scene listing. Scene listing. What the heck is scene listening, right? Scene listing, lists of scenes. So I had to go and look that up, and I'm like going, oh, I can write down an idea on a card. I can write down several ideas on a card, and then I can develop my story. Hey, because I've been sitting here going, okay, this idea comes to me and I wrote it down, and this idea came to me and I wrote that down, but how do you put them together? I didn't know that was actually part of writing. So what I want you guys to do is, do you need these papers? Okay, Monique? Okay. What I want you guys to do is take and draw a line down the middle of your page.
So one page for both of us?
No,
Or,
you each have your own page, but I want you to draw a line down the middle of your page. Okay? As you guys are talking about your ideas, if something the other person says triggers an idea, I want you to write it down on the left-hand side of your paper while you're talking.
left.
Okay? We'll do something with the right in a few minutes. What I want you guys to do with the second part, first let me explain to you how I got this idea of putting the line down the paper. I didn't ask this of you because I personally can't divide my attention this way, but I was at a conference one time when I was going for something with social work, and the lecturer that was telling about whatever I was supposed to be learning about, he said that he was in a class one time, and a man came in, sat down, and do you know this? Okay. Anyhow, he took like a notebook, put a line down the middle, and he actually was writing with both hands. He was writing on this side on this line with this hand, he was writing with his hand with this hand. Wow. And the guy asked him, do you mind if I ask you what you're doing and why and how are you writing with both hands? And he said, well, with my left hand, I'm writing down what the person is saying in the lecture. And with my right hand, I'm writing down what I'm going to do with that information. I've never met anybody that could actually do that. Would love to sometime. But anyhow, so what I want you to do, just take a couple of minutes briefly, and anything that they have said that you wrote down on the left hand, on the right hand, I just want you to take a couple of minutes and write down what you will do with that information. If it's a story plot, if it's a scene list, if it's a book idea, just take a couple of minutes and jot down if it's something that you want to write a poem about. Just take a couple of minutes and write down what you think you might do with what you wrote down on your left-hand list.
I was speaking to Barbara about her story that she's been writing for multiple years called The Bell Bottom High, which I love the name of the series, by the way. And she was talking about what's going to happen in the first book, and it has to do with a teenage pregnancy. And that made me start thinking about children or young women who find themselves in that position and where to go, what are they going to do. And upon the idea of Ms. Barbara here, she said that she was thinking about a home for teen pregnant women. And so then that made me think, well, that would be a really cool story about this home of teenage, young, soon-to-be mothers.
Well, that's too much hormones.
And it would be really cool if it was an anthology. And you had different people.
Stories telling them different experiences.
Different experiences that could be their own personal experience, or it could be, fictitious. And you could have mysteries, you could have murder, you could have romance, you could have such a wide variety of genres in one book regarding this.
Ooh, look at that idea. Wow. Nice. You want to share it? Or?
Well, basically she shared with a new series idea that she has, and basically everything, that just got me to thinking about my series. That's why I told her about my series, because when she said series, that kind of triggered, oh, I've been working on this series for years, maybe it's time I did something with it. So, you know, I just listened to her ideas and I jot down some of the things she said that I might can incorporate into my book, or things I need to go back and look at, you know, in my series that might can help me improve it. Yeah, beautiful.
Well, my friend doesn't talk a whole lot, and we talked about her story, that her plans for her future in writing, that she is currently working on volume 2 of Peace Poems volume 2. After that, she plans to do Peace Poems volume 3, followed by Peace Poems volume 4.
All right.
And that she plans to, and she's gonna sell 150,000 books,
Woo-hoo.
so she can buy her a new car.
There you
There you
go.
go.
She might get a new car if she sells.
I was gonna say, don't forget about mom.
And she's going to college with, you know, she's gonna go to college and be able to go places. These are her plans for her books. So.
Nice.
Very nice.
Were you able to use that with what, anything, did it inspire you to?
Yeah, I need to sell 150,000.
Well, my friend over here, she talked about her upcoming book that she wants done sooner than later. And it's about vampire, you know, and werewolves. And I was thinking to use it as a poem.
There you go. Yes.
How's that gonna help me?
It's not supposed to have, it's supposed to have work.
I just say dedicated to.
Oh, you have to. Yes, give me credit.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
I love her.
That is cute.
See that helped me? That helped my ego.
There you go.
And maybe you can incorporate it into your book, and she can incorporate it into her book.
Yes, I would love to. Anne Rice, I read a book of hers years ago, but her husband would always write a poem at the very the beginning of her book, and she put it written by Stan Rice. Helped make him a
If you
famous
want to
poet.
write a poem about dragons, I'll put it in my book.
Okay. And you can put in your book, and then
Yeah.
everybody have
There
it in
you
their book.
go.
Cross promote.
Yeah.
So, my segue into its list.
SCENE, so if I say screen, ignore me, but because I've been practicing screen list all week. But it's a scene list. And what happens is, a few weeks ago, I've been writing a story, my second book in the kind of like a series, but I broke my flash drive. And it was heart-wrenching, people. I just want you to know the pain is real. And I can still feel it today. The tears are about to come now. But I had so much done. It was just about finished. And I was like, now I have to start all over from scratch. And I was like, how can I possibly remember all the stuff that I had written? Because I thought it was pretty good. And when I write now, it's like, that's not how I had it before. But so it's taken me longer to rewrite it than it actually did to write it, you know, because
You're too busy trying to remember instead of letting it flow.
just let it. And so, I have to work on that. That's my issue right now. But when I'm in the process, I was like, there has to be another way. So I was looking in the internet, and I saw where this young lady, Monica Clark, she said how a seamless can change your novel writing life. And what she said to do was simply to write down, you make your list, your segments of what you want to write about. And then you just add a word or two or a line or two of what you want that scene to be about. Right. Put the point of view, whose point of view is this going to be from, and then one or two sentences about what the scene is actually going to be about. And then she says to count the words, you know, but I'm not into word count. You take a piece of paper, which I didn't bring any, and you write down what I told you to write, or the things I think you write, the things that are important to you for your scene. What works for her didn't work for me. There's, like I said, page count, a word count is not important to me. but the point of view is important. Who's in that scene is important. What's going to happen in that scene? Who's going to be the antagonist? Does he show up? How does this scene move my story forward to the end? And so I can see where that's been helpful to me on this go round. And one of the things that it says, I picked up, it says, the things that are necessary for writing a scene. And it says, one is what needs to happen in this scene? What's the worst that would happen if the scene was omitted? Number 3, who needs to be in that scene? Number 4, where could the scene take place? Number 5, what's the most surprising thing that could happen in the scene? Number 6, is this a long scene or a short scene? Number 7, brainstorm 3 different ways it could begin. Number 8, play it on the screen in your mind. Number 9, write a scribble version. 10, write a full version. 11, repeat 200 times. At the end, you got your novel. And that makes sense to me because there are things in here that I find that I always like to do in my writing. I like to tell the who, what, when, where, why, and how. But I also want you to be able to see, feel, smell, taste, get your 6 senses in. And then in the beginning, when I was young as a writer, my characters were always perfect and they always were all good. And my evil people were always all bad, And so I had to learn how to give my evil people some good qualities. He may be a murderer who's killed everybody in his block, but he really loves his mother. That sort of thing. Or she may be the best little Girl Scout leader, community leader in this, but she's a tramp on Saturday nights. Every good person has something bad, and every bad person should have something good. And so what I've decided to do, and I did not bring paper. So again, use your paper and divide it into about 3 or 4 sections and decide what is important for your scene. It may be a scene that you're working on or already in a story that you're working on or something that you're planning for the future. Just divide into the things that would be important for you to help you move your story forward. The point of view, who the main character is it going to be a love scene? Is it going to be a fight scene? There are all kinds of scenes that you can do. When I write, I see things in my mind. And so it makes it easier, and sometimes I have to slow my fingers down because as I finish, I forgot the space or something like that, and I don't know what this word is, and so it helps to be able to be creative and write it in your mind. So just take a few minutes, and we'll move forward with that.
I think it's actually kind of interesting. It's weird how writing the different scenes and figuring out what you want in the scene, and it seems like it's coming easier, and I'm not fighting what I'm developing in my mind so much. So I like this.
I've been co-writing scenes for a web series, so I decided that would be my project to write on for this exercise. And I probably did not follow the directions right, but I see scenes in my mind, and sometimes I literally dream them, and I just get up and write them. But having written in the screenwriting format the past 7 months, it's really hard for me to write in a different format now. Other than my poetry, I can still write poetry, but to write the thoughts that are going on in the person's mind and all of that, how you do in a novel, I'm always thinking it, but then I'm like, how do we visualize that? How do I write it? So that's where you write the action, and the dialogue has to tell you a lot because you're not inside the character's head. And it's so cool because you just make up stuff and then you see it happen. It's like when you write it in a book and you have to wait till people read it and tell you what their reaction is. But when you're writing it and then you see actors perform it and then their interpretation of what you wrote, they bring their own interpretation in there, and sometimes it's better than what I have. And I have to stop myself because at first I was like, wait, that's not how I wrote, but I'll just let it flow, and give them enough background so they understand But they're gonna interpret those lines in their own way, and it's so cool to see that come to life. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome, y'all. I can't wait. The trailers, if you haven't seen them, they're on Poemity TV on YouTube, on the Poemity TV channel. There are 2 trailers. I can't give y'all a date when it's gonna be launched, but if you just subscribe to Poemity TV, then you'll know.
Okay.
Or look for it on Facebook. I'll be promoting it on my
I
pages.
just kind of went through how I kind of outline or do my scenes when I'm writing for a romance novel. The first scene, I like to start with a prologue, to get people interested, nothing to do with the story, just a prologue, give me some interest. The second chapter is usually to introduce the main characters and decide whether it's first person, third person, or whatever. And then the third chapter is usually where I introduce the secondary characters and try to get more into what the story is about, when it's happening, and where it's happening. And then, of course, in the fourth chapter, if you write romance, there has to be some type of confrontation or a huge breakup scene. Something has to break them apart, And then chapter 5 and 6 and 7 are basically some type of action or event that propels the story. And then there has to be a climax scene where they get back together or whatever. And then the next scene is usually a turnaround scene where, the bad person turns to good or there's some great revelation. And then the next scene is what I call the ending scene or the resolution scene, where the story kind of ends. And then the final scene, I like to have an epilogue. Whenever I have a prologue, I like to have an epilogue. And the epilogue basically tells where they are now and what's happening now. They're getting married or they're having a baby or, some major event is going on and everybody's there. Voila, that's it. Romance 101.
That's your formula.
That's my formula.
Okay, thank you so much for coming today. Today was a very intimate group, and the activities were fun. I really enjoyed both of them, especially the one where Karen gave us suggestions that helped us move and both of them for helping us to move our stories along. So thank you very much, Karen.
Yes. I like yours as well because it helped me figure out what a scene list is. It's helping me move along. And again, I appreciate the welcoming feeling I have with this group because I feel like I've walked in and I belong. I feel like I'm at home. So thank you.
Thank you.